What's going on, guys? Hey, you growing with Sean, right? Let's go ahead and get into it. All right, so let's talk about the 5 basic essential needs when starting your plant journey. Okay? Number 1, you want to have adequate sunlight. 2, proper watering. 3, well-drained soil. 4, appropriate container. 5, regular observation. All right, let's go ahead and adequate sunlight. All right, do you remember when we was in school and we learned about this term called photosynthesis? Photosynthesis allow these plants to be able to use the sunlight, use it as energy to help our plant grow. That's the importance of it. That's why we like to have our plants close to the window, or if you have some type of grow light, and we will talk about that later on, but that's the purpose of a window. You find some light, put your plant by it, there we go. You can put up shears if you want to block the direct sunlight coming into your plants. I've seen many other people do it. I do not do it. It has not affected my plants. Number 2, proper watering. This is going to be essential in helping your plant grow and thrive. Down here at the bottom, the soil that's inside of there, it carries all the nutrients that the plant needs. In order for the plant to get that, you have to water it. Now, if you overwater it, it forms this condition called root rot. That's where the water just sits in a pot and it doesn't go anywhere, which causes your plant from the bottom, because of the moisture that's stuck in there, to start dying. They usually start turning yellow or they start limping to the side. Now, sometimes the withering can come from it being dry, but more than likely, if you suspect that you might have overwatered your plant, take your finger right here, come down about here, place it in a pot. See here? Place it in a pot. Determine if it's cool or not. If the soil feels real cool, almost wet, take a little pinch of it out and feel it and do a real good inspection of it and smell it. You can smell when it's bad. Okay, if you ever been outside and you smelled like a mushy, just sticky stench, okay, that's what your plant smells like when it's root rot. The best thing to do for that in that case, take that plant out the pot. I'm telling you, take it out of the pot, get you some soil, fresh soil, put it back in there, stick the plant in there. I wouldn't put any water in it for about 2 or 3 days. A lot of people underwater plants. Try to become consistent with your plant. Set an alarm in your phone and your calendar, however way you do it, for every 3 or 4 days, just go and check on your plant. Most of the time, a plant needs to be watered 1 to 2 times a week. This right here is a water meter. You can get them from Amazon, your local stores, however way. Sometimes I get a little bit confused if it's just cold dirt or if it's wet. Stick it in there about 30 seconds. Sometimes you can do a minute, just depends. And they give you a pretty accurate meter. It has worked fine for me. I've never had a problem with it. A well-drained soil. Okay, so I don't know if you've heard people talk about like an airy soil mixture. Your soil mixture is going to be important because that's how your plant, that's the nutrients that's inside your plant. When we're talking about airy, we mean basically when we water that plant, we want to make sure that that water is going to all of the plant. If you have too much soil or a bad soil mixture inside of your plant mix at the bottom, when you put water, sometimes it would just exit around the side and drain straight out, never going inside of the plant, getting into the middle base of the pot. That's essential. You can go to your big box stores or your local greenery store and you can get just a bag by Miracle-Gro called Indoor Plant Soil, okay? It works. No need to complicate it. Now, I did notice that when I bought items like perlite, that's like a little white, kind of styrofoamy like concoction. Mixing that in with that plant mix, it allows it to be a little bit more airy. You get some people who like to throw in some orchid bark into the mixture as well. And it just helps to be able, when you water it, that you know your plant is going to receive the water, but you know it's going to go ahead and drain out. And that's really what you want. Number 4, Appropriate containers. All right, size does matter when it comes to these plants, guys. I can't stress that enough. That is the number one mistake that I feel like all new beginners we make. We see a plant, we know exactly how big the plant is supposed to get if it matures and if it is grown in the conditions in which it does favor. So we buy this big pot, right? And we sit this little bitty plant inside this big pot. Well, what happens when we water it? We're not watering just the plant. Now we're watering all that soil that's inside of that pot. That's root rot. Your plant, the soil is going to absorb all that water and it's going to sit there. Your plant's not going to be able to grow or thrive from it. I always recommend put a nursery pot inside of your other pot because it allows for drainage for your water. You want that. You don't want, just in case we all get a little heavy sometimes and get happy watering our plants, and we put sometimes maybe a little too much water. This allows the water to be able to drain out. But we're talking about the size of the pot and why it matters, okay? So we have this in a smaller pot because it doesn't need as much room around, nor does it need that much soil for what it's doing right now size. This plant, though, will get to be this size, bigger, possibly. So look at the pot size that's in. It will make no sense to put this plant in this pot size because when I water it, it's going to be so much water that's going to go into just soil and not actually hit the plant that it's going to cause the plant to stress out. When it stresses out, that's when you're going to start seeing gnats, and it's going to start wilting all the way down, start turning yellow, start leaning to the side, and just start getting smaller and smaller. And you're going to ask yourself, what is going on? Well, check your pot. Usually it's too big. Number 5. Now this right here is probably the most important step out of all of these that I listed. Regular observation. All right, so what are you checking for, right? Okay. All you're doing is simply looking at the leaves. You're just making sure you don't see any yellowing going on. You don't see anything leaning off to the side. When you pick it up, you don't see water draining out the bottom of the sides. Again, you will have this right here. If you want a decorative pot, you could drop this in. I don't need a decorative pot for this because that's why I went with clear pots, because to me that just looks nice. So I'm able to take a look at my soil and see exactly what it's looking like. Okay, you can see these are the roots. Simply just gonna take my finger, go in there, just gonna see. Feels kind of cool, doesn't feel dry, doesn't feel wet. This is good for another day. I'll check on it tomorrow. That's how we go. Now, if I wanted to use my moisture meter, right here, this click all the way over here is the moisture. So I'll check it and simply put it into here. Now be careful when you're putting this in here. I use the same place that I usually check every time that I monitor the plant. But be careful when you go here, because when you job in here, especially if you're moving really hard, fast, you can hear the roots breaking as you're going there. Don't just to check the water break your plant, you know? Just be careful while you're doing it. Well, thank you for your time. And when growing with Sean, it's always something to learn.